Well, there's more breaking news tonight. A new financial disclosure by President Trump and lingering questions about the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. For the first time, the president is confirming that he paid back his lawyer, Michael Cohen, the fixer, more than $100,000 and no more than $250,000. What the report doesn't say is if the repayment was for the $130,000 that Cohen facilitated to Ms. Daniels in the last days of the campaign in an effort to keep her quiet about an affair she says she had with Mr. Trump. Of course, Mr. Trump denies the affair. Now, there's more. The Office of Government Ethics has already sent the financial documents to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, along with a letter that said, and I quote, "You may find the disclosure relevant to any inquiry you may be pursuing." Joining me now is Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' attorney. So Rudy Giuliani told Dana Bash that he first revealed that President Trump reimbursed Cohen on Hannity to get ahead of this filing. Does that make sense to you?
Not entirely, Anderson. I think that the reason why he disclosed it on Hannity had little to do with this filing and had everything to do with the fact that he knew that we had evidence that was going to undercut the prior denials by Michael Cohen, Mr. Trump, and David Schwartz, and Mr. Giuliani, among others. And he also knew that documents had been obtained in connection with the FBI raids that were going to make those previous statements falsities, and they tried to get out in front of it. But the problem is that they didn't try to get out in front of it when they should have tried to get out in front of it, which was months ago before they made all those lies.
What's the other thing that Rudy Giuliani has said is that the president himself didn't really learn about these the repayment until about 10 days before it was either the Hannity or the Fox and Friends interview that Giuliani gave back to back, which, again, we don't know for sure when the president became aware of these payments. The idea, though, that he only became aware of them 10 days before Giuliani gave that interview, that just seems surprising.
Well, it's worse than that, Anderson, because according to the financial disclosure that was filed today, the reimbursements occurred in 2017 by their own admission. So, and the president signed that under penalty of perjury. So I don't understand how they can claim that.
Well, I guess Giuliani's claim is that, well, he just didn't know what those payments were for. He would have signed that as, money he just routinely sends to Michael Cohen.
This doesn't make any sense, Anderson. We've heard story upon story upon story. And, I was on this show with David Schwartz on many occasions, and David Schwartz told you and me and...
An attorney for Cohen.
Correct, and others that the president never knew of any reimbursement, that the money was never reimbursed, and that Michael Cohen just did this all on his own. I mean, we know that's all untrue.
But there is no evidence at this point of when the president became aware of the payments. We don't know if the president knew about it as it was happening, knew about it before. At this point, you have no evidence in your lawsuit that you've been able to come across that indicates exactly when the president knew.
Well, I don't understand exactly what the argument is. What the president signed today states that the reimbursements were made during the year 2017. Are they suggesting that the president reimbursed this money but he didn't know about it? I don't understand. How does somebody reimburse a payment and not know about it?
Well, as I recall from an interview David Schwartz did on Aaron Burnett, he said that Mr. Cohen took care of many things like this. This was kind of the purview of Michael Cohen. So it wouldn't have been all that unusual for the president to just, that this was also part of a retainer, Rudy Giuliani has stated.
Look, I just don't buy it. I don't think the American people are going to buy it. They've heard story upon story now over the last 4 or 5 months relating to these payments, relating to these reimbursements. This whole thing doesn't make any sense, especially, and also, I think if you look at Michael Cohen's statement in March of this year, where he said that he facilitated the payment and did not receive reimbursement from the Trump organization or from the campaign. I mean, now I guess we know that that was purposely deceptive because according to the financial disclosure form, he had already been fully reimbursed by Mr. Trump individually at that point in time.
The other thing that Giuliani had said, which I don't quite understand the discrepancy, he said in, I think it was Hannity or in the Fox and Friends interview, that it was a total of about $460,000 to $470,000 that the president had given to Michael Cohen in various payments. In this financial disclosure, it really only talks about anywhere between $100,000 to $250,000. Do you understand that discrepancy?
I don't understand the math, and I don't understand the discrepancy. And again, every time Mr. Giuliani or Mr. Cohen, through his representative, give a statement on this, it's always different. It's a constant moving target. The truth appears to be very elusive for some reason.
Michael Avenatti, appreciate it. Thanks very much. Earlier this week, my next guest wrote an op-ed for USA Today arguing that the president needed to come clean about his Stormy Daniels debt with Michael Cohen in the financial report. The question is, did he really come clean? Has he gone far enough? I want to talk it over with Adav Nodi, who's the former Associate General Counsel for the Federal Election Commission. So, Dov, the fact that the Office of Government Ethics referred the financial filing already to the Justice Department, Walter Schaub, the former director of the Office of Government Ethics, said today that the referral is, quote, tantamount to a criminal referral. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, what the Office of Government Ethics did was send a letter to the Department of Justice saying, we've looked at the president's financial disclosure. He says that he didn't need to report the debt to Mr. Cohen. We disagree. And note that although he provided some information about it this year, he provided none last year. And the Office of Government Ethics sent that to the Department of Justice and said, to the extent you're investigating anything criminally about the president's finances, you may find this to be of interest. So that is absolutely equivalent to a criminal referral, particularly because it's the Office of Government Ethics that decides what does or doesn't need to get reported. The president doesn't get to decide that and hasn't apparently provided any counter argument as to why the agency's determination was wrong.
You heard Michael Avenatti's reaction to the filing tonight. I wonder what you make of what he said.
Yeah, I think there's two issues. One is the issue that Mr. Avenatti raised, which is that there is now a discrepancy between the president's sworn statement in his personal financial disclosure and the various public statements that have been made by the president and his surrogates. So that's one issue. But the other issue is the legal one, that his conduct has been referred to the Department of Justice for potential criminal prosecution. And that strikes me as potentially the much bigger deal here.
How common is it that the Office of Government Ethics refers something like this to the Justice Department?
Not common at all. This entire back and forth between the president and the Office of Government Ethics and then the ultimate letter to the Department of Justice is very, very out of the ordinary. What appears to have happened is that the president tried to sneak in the debt to Mr. Cohen in a footnote on page 40-something of his report. And the Office of Government Ethics said, well, no, you can't do that. You have to really disclose it. But since you've provided enough information, we'll let it go. But then, of course, sent the letter to the Department of Justice also saying, note that this wasn't reported last year as it should have been.
Why wouldn't the president have to disclose the exact amount? Because in that little footnote, it said it was anywhere between $100,000 and $1 and $250,000. Then you had Rudy Giuliani saying it totaled about $460,000 or $470,000.
Well, the use of the range is okay because the form itself only requires debts and assets to be reported in ranges. But the discrepancy is hard to explain. It may be that the number that Mr. Giuliani gave included not just the $130,000 repayment, but the other legal fees that the president was paying to Mr. Cohen for his work. It's not clear at all what this...
Or possible other deals that Michael Cohen was making on behalf of the president. And we just don't know.
Absolutely, but if that's the case, then those should have been reported both today and last year, depending on the timing, and that would be a violation of federal law to not report them.
Dov Nodi, I appreciate it. Thanks very much.